Good day, everyone. I hope you guys are all having a really good week. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Tiffany. Thank you all for, coming and spending time with me and my family. Today's video is going to be about the decision I made to change my son's name when I adopted him, why I did it, and what his name currently is. Alrighty, so I changed my son's birth name for 3 reasons, and before I get started, I am fully aware that my reasons may not sit well with some of you, and that's okay because you know what? This is my truth. I'm not afraid to speak my truth. I'm not afraid to own any of the decisions that I made, whether they turn out to be good or whether they turn out to be bad. But this particular decision that I made to change his birth name actually was for the best for myself as well as for him, and I have no regrets about that. With that said, reason number 1, I changed my son's birth name because I didn't like it. I didn't like it. There's no easier way to say that. It was ugly. Some people, when they adopt, choose to live with names that they wouldn't have picked necessarily. I didn't choose to do that, and you cannot stone me for my decision to change my son's name. That's how I feel about it. Second reason is I have a particular style of name that I want all of my children to carry, whether they are adopted, whether they are biological children, if I choose to have biological children. And what I mean by that is I am a Southern belle at heart. I love a good, strong, double name. My son's adopted name is Isaiah Maxwell. When I have other children, they will also have that double first name. Like I'm stuck on the name for a female child, Eden James. You see a theme? So I would like all my children, whether they are adopted or biological, to have a double name. So I do plan on adopting again, and if the next time I adopt, my child is an older child, and if that child finds that their identity is wrapped up in their name or they're attached to their name, then they'll have the option of, do you want to keep your birth name and add a second last name? Or do you want 2 totally different names? The decision will be theirs, but at the end of the day, they'll have that double name thing that I would like all of my children to have. Which leads to my last reason as to why I changed my son's birth name, is that they were saying his name wrong anyway. So when I met him, they gave me placement paperwork with his full name on it, and I looked at the name and I compared it to what they had been calling him, and they were saying it wrong. How do I know this? Because it's an ethnic name, a black name. That's pretty common, and he was placed with a white foster parent, so bless her soul. I think she was just sounding out the letters and syllables, and she kind of tried to get there but didn't make it. So I'm not going to tell you what his birth name is, but an example would be like Tyreek. So if his birth name was Tyreek, she was saying like T-Ryrick. T-Ryrick. She was calling him T-Ryrick instead of Tyreek. And I was just like, what? So I actually brought it up during my first visit with him, with the foster parent, his social worker, everyone there. I said, I don't think this is how his name is pronounced. I think it's pronounced this. And everybody, all the black people at the table was like, yeah, I agree. And I'm like, well, why did you guys let this woman continue to call this child the wrong name for like the last year and a half? Nevertheless, whether it was pronounced the right way or the wrong way, I didn't like it. So it just worked for me to not carry that on for the next lifetime. So how did I get him accustomed to his new name? That was not hard. When I knew that I was being placed with a male child, I started thinking about male names. I had a list of names that I were like my favorites. When I took him to our hotel that we were going to stay in, if you want to know more about that story, check out my adoption story. Also, let me apologize because I actually meant to tell this story in my adoption video. My bad. So I sat him down and I said that mommy would like to call you a new name. And then I proceeded to say, can mommy call you, like my top names was like Elias, and he was like, And then I said another name. I think I had 4 names. I can't remember what the other name is, but Elias, Isaac, Isaias, and that fourth name. I can't remember what it was. Were my top selections. And he said no, a strong no to two of them. One of them was like, and I think that was Isaac. And Isaias, he immediately, when I said Isaias, he said yeah, and he nodded and shook his head yes. And so just to make sure that we were on the same page, I repeated the process. Can mommy call you Elias? No. Can mommy call you Isaac? Can mommy call you Isaias? Yes. And so I actually started calling him Isaias, and I attached his second name to it because I read, when people change their children's name when they adopted, they attached the original birth name to the adoptive name just to get them acclimated. But truly, he didn't need it because he started telling me to not call him the birth name. So within the first 72 hours, he was fully going by Isaias and nothing else. When our foster social worker came to visit us, whether it was from the county where he was from or from my FFA social worker came to see us, during those first visits, everyone was referring to him as his birth name, and he would correct them. Isaias. So he acclimated and accepted the name really easily, really well, and he would throw a fit anytime anybody would try to refer to him as his birth name. So again, I say for me, my family, my son, the name change worked. I would like to add that some foster children, due to trauma, do not do well with keeping their birth names. I know that on my caseload, I've had older children state to me that they do not want to be referred to by the birth name, and they'll come up with a nickname in the interim. On my caseload, I've also had younger children where the therapist and the foster parent have both noticed that the child seems to react negatively to their birth name and ended up calling them different names, and the child seamlessly adapted to the change for the better. What I've noticed is that younger children, smaller children, toddler age children, adapt really easily. They're really resilient, and the name change doesn't seem to impact them. I can't say this is all across the board easy to change because I don't know. But from what I've seen so far on my caseload and my experiences, it's easier for children that are younger to receive a name change without being greatly impacted by it. So while I did change my son's first and middle name, I kept his last name because his last name is of Puerto Rican heritage, and I received so much pushback from that because people were saying, don't you want him to have your last name? Well, I plan on getting married one day, and when I get married, my son would have the option of, do you want to keep your last name, or do you want to hyphen your last name to mommy's new last name and daddy's last name? So I didn't see a need to change it, especially because he's in preschool. Well, he was in preschool at the time that the adoption was finalizing, and they were teaching him how to identify his name, what his name was, how to write his name. So before the adoption even finalized, he already knew in his head that his last name was So I thought changing his name 3 times before he was even 3 was too much. He already identified that he was Isaias Maxwell, middle name, last name. So I thought it was in his best interest to keep his birth last name. I also kept his birth last name because I think it ties him further to his Latino heritage. I know that keeping his last name does not in totality connect him to his Latin heritage. So I make sure that, I expose him to cultural events. I do have a lot of Latino friends of the same heritage that he can, identify with when he's older. We speak Spanish here in my house when nobody's here anyway, so I thought it would be good to continue to help make him bilingual. I buy him books that are from his culture, etc. And then the black side of him, he gets that from me, so I just wanted to make sure that he's well-rounded on both sides of his biological parentage. But like I was saying, I got a lot of pushback for keeping his birth last name because people thought that we should have the same name. And I'm like, I didn't have the same last name as my mother growing up. She was married, so she had her married last name. My siblings and I don't have the same last name because we don't have the same fathers. So even my friends, a lot of them gave their children their father's last name, and so they don't carry the same last names. So I couldn't understand how people were telling me to give my son my last name just because they thought that I should. And I'm like, well, as I stated earlier, I don't think it's in his best interest to now change his name again and then possibly change it again. So I did what was best for me and best for my son, and I had to learn to totally ignore everyone else. Still to this day, they will tell me that I made the wrong decision, but ultimately, I did what was best for me and my son, and I don't regret it. So if you are adopting, in the process of adopting, considering adopting, do what's best for you. Do what's best for your child. You can take into consideration other people's opinions and beliefs, but ultimately you have to live with the name. Your child has to live with the name. Strangers, family, friends, they're not impacted like your child and you will be. And perhaps you decide that keeping a child's birth name is in their best interest and what works for your family. That's your decision, no judgment. Do what's best for you. So do what's best for you in your situation so that you don't have regrets. As for me and for mine, I have zero regrets. I know that changing Isaiah's birth name to his adoptive name was in his best interest. I can't even see him as anything else at this point. And that is the reason why I changed his name. Questions, concerns, let me know. Even if you disagree, I'm open to hearing your perspective of why it's better, in your opinion, to keep a child's birth name. If you'd like to see more videos similar to these or my parenthood experiences, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, say hi sometime, and I will see you guys on Sunday. Bye.